Welcome back to Game of Thrones. Upon further review of Episode 9, The Watchers on the Wall, Steve-O, Johnny DeRolla, we do our initial reviews right after watching the episode Sunday evening, but when you have time to think about it a little bit, read a few articles about it, talk with your friends, it often will cause you to look at the episode in a different way. And so we like to give it a couple-day buffer and then re-review the episode. And you have a lot of thoughts, actually.
I do. And also, you guys get that great dose of the actual episode plus the review on Sunday night. You don't want to wait a whole week for more Game of Thrones content, so we give it to you in the middle of the week.
Exactly.
So what I want to do is I want to look at this episode from the perspective of love versus duty, because the Grand Maester, is that Maester?
Maester.
Grand Maester, he spoke about it twice now.
Yeah.
I've
heard that love is the death of duty.
That's what he says. So what does that mean, and how does that play with the plot and what happens to the various characters?
Okay.
But before we get there, I just want to just do a quick run through of the so what happened on this episode kind of version of the review. And so this is the second episode, other than Blackwater, where the whole episode is based on one plot line.
Exactly, and in one location, yeah.
Yes, yes. And it's very contrary to the Game of Thrones, because there's so many different stories, so many different characters, and all these different threads that are interwoven, and you go from one to the next in most episodes, which leaves you a bit confused if you're not a book reader, especially in the first season, which is the reason why I've gone back and rewatched the entire first season to get a better sense of it. But this one was just one, and oddly, I liked it less. Like I wanted a more expansive look at the different threads that was happening, especially the way we left off in episode 9 with Oberyn's head being crushed in and Tyrion being,
it's a cliffhanger, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's
skull
a
hanger.
massive cliffhanger. I couldn't wait. And I knew, I guess everyone knew that this episode will be focused on the wall, but I didn't know it was going to be entirely on the wall.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so it left me a bit wanting. I wanted more. So overall, I found that to be kind of bad.
Yeah.
And Blackwater was good in the sense that the whole season kind of led up to that. Stannis, will he be successful in taking King's Landing and taking the throne from Joffrey Baratheon or not?
Yeah.
So it kind of culminated in that big battle sequence, which made sense. But here, the wall story isn't really the focal point. There's a lot of stuff happening in King's Landing and over in Essex.
I would say that's sort of the choice of the showrunners. That's not necessarily the way it was in the books. I agree with you. There was a lot more immediately apparently riding on the Battle of the Blackwater. I mean, we know objectively that if the wall were to fall, that would be disastrous because you have this massive army of wildlings and also the White Walkers, but they haven't really sold it as a viable threat, really.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why this episode to me was disappointing. And before all of you guys go nuts and call me, all kinds of awful names and accuse me of being a hater, I didn't hate it. I liked it. I just didn't like it as much as I liked the other episodes. And it's amazing and a testament to how amazing Game of Thrones is that I feel the need to nitpick this episode because it fell short of my expectations from prior episodes.
Yeah, and a lot of critics have pointed out that they didn't enjoy it as much. Like Jenks said, it's lacking sort of the intrigue that you expect to see in every Game of Thrones episode. But one thing, I was talking with a friend over Skype who also watched it, that I think we need to bear in mind is those of us who are really into the show, for whom it's our favorite show, we are so wrapped up in the week to week trying to find out as much as possible. Like, we can remember just a few days ago, like, processing the Oberyn thing, processing the Tyrion thing, and wondering what's going to happen to him, and we want answers now. But the episodes aren't just being made for people watching it live each week. Like, we have to bear in mind that a year from now, 2 years from now, people are going to be hammer watching this on Netflix or HBO Go, and they're not going to be as concerned about having to wait, and they might enjoy more that the show stops and pays serious attention to the plight of one group of characters. Like, I wish that we had 20 episodes and we could afford to do this more, and so I understand what you're saying, but I think in the end we're going to get those answers.
I hear you, but in a season there's 10 episodes. To burn the
10%.
9th episode, to burn the entire 9th episode on this one event.
The most expensive episode in the history of the show.
To me, not worth it because the battle between the wildlings and the Night's Watch, that to me was much less compelling than the battle between the Mountain and Oberyn, mano a mano battle. So let's get to it. I didn't like a lot of the battle scenes because generally I don't like battle scenes in almost any movie because to me they're kind of like car chase scenes where it's just a lot of action and just, it's a lot of fluff without a real kind of payoff. Because when you see, for me, when I see scenes of nameless characters fighting and dying in the background, doesn't really do anything.
So you're saying like a pan across the courtyard doesn't necessarily matter to you?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I would largely agree. I like seeing it, but I don't care as much about it.
And then in this particular battle scene, okay, so the book readers like you guys know a lot more of exactly what's going on. But from my perspective and for show watchers, it didn't make any sense to me because here's what it didn't make sense. So the wildlings have what, 100,000? 100,000 strong.
Give or take, yeah. Not necessarily all combat troops, but
there's 102 men of the Night's Watch left.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how many they sent. What did they send? 100 people? 1,000
the wildlings
people?
that were south of the wall?
Yeah.
I would guess from seeing their group that it was like 40.
Wait a second. So Tormund and Then and Ygritte,
Tormund and Styr, I think his name was, and Ygritte.
Yeah, they were all south of the wall?
Yeah, so if you recall, when Jon Snow broke away, he was with the group that went over the wall and then started rampaging to the south.
Right, because they're at Molestown and killed everyone there.
Yeah, so that group is cut off from the rest of the Wildling army. They were sort of a scouting party. They were supposed to assess the defenses. And really the only reason they attack is Ygritte comes back and says, they've only got like 20 guys down here, like we should just attack.
All right, so they attack from there. And then what's the deal with the giants?
So the giants basically are like the shock troops of the Wildling army. They're just sent in to try to take down the gate so that the whole army can pour through.
Okay, so Mance Rayder only sent the giants.
Well, he sent some other guys. He sent guys to try to climb up, the wall and stuff like that.
Climbers and the giants.
And the giants, yeah.
All right, now it makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
Okay, now it makes a lot more sense. All right, because otherwise I was like, why and how in the world did 102 fend off the Wildling army?
Why didn't they just send 100,000 over the castle? Yeah, you're right.
Or,
well, they
or
didn't.
even like 1,000 or 500. And because like
I mean, they came close even with the 40 or 50 that they had.
I mean, Tormund and was it Styles? What
I think his name is Styr. I could be wrong. He's the head Fen, basically.
Those two were just butchering everyone in their path.
If you had like 5 of them.
Yeah, those two.
And Ygritte.
Yeah, but those plus Ygritte, those 3 probably killed like 50 people.
Yeah, can I say something about that actually? So I enjoyed the episode more than most people did because I like fights and stuff like that. But if you stop and think about what you saw, very little of it actually makes any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw, like if you go through and count the number of people who were killed, there's nobody left there. I mean, Ygritte killed 20 easily by herself. And so there's nobody left if you count up the bodies. And more importantly, so you see they get over the wall and instantly there's a general melee throughout the courtyard, throughout the castle. If there's only 20, 25, maybe she was wrong, maybe there were 30, the fight couldn't last as long as it did. Because you see so many die, like what, are the people fighting in the courtyard for 10 minutes? No, the fights don't last that long.
Yeah, so...
I still enjoyed it, but it doesn't make sense.
So my problem with the episode and the confusion, all of that, is that it seemed like the Wildlings were just absolutely kicking ass. I mean, they were just crushing. And then Jon Snow comes down that little elevator shaft with like 4 guys, and all of a sudden they just totally win.
Well, I would say he also had Ghost, but I think it may have looked like they were kicking more ass than they actually were because, unfortunately, the Wildlings were dressed all in dark clothing. The Night's Watch is dressed all in dark clothing, so sometimes it's hard to tell who's actually getting the kill. And so sometimes it's a Night's Watchman killing a Wildling, but it looks like it's a Wildling killing a crow.
Okay. All right, so anyway, so the battle scenes, they are what they are. Night's Watch won. Congratulations. You withstood the night.
And look, I liked what happened in the tunnel. I think that had more emotional resonance than just the general people fighting in the courtyard. Like the 6 guys going down there to stand against a giant, knowing they're going to die. Like that's the sort of fighting I like.
Yeah, and you know what? I also didn't mind them not showing that fight.
I think it means more to not show it, to just have to imagine what happened to them.
I agree. And because that scene was really about self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
That those guys, they're terrified. They were going to die for certain, and they were chanting their oath to kind of, inspire
themselves up,
themselves
yeah.
so they can have the courage to stand there and fight. And they did, and we just imagine what they went through, and then we just see the result. And
Yeah.
I think that was well done.
better to not
It was
see it,
well
I
done.
think.
Yeah. So I want to go to the relationship between Sam and Gilly.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Oh, Gilly. She can't close her mouth. I think her character cannot actually close her mouth. She's always.
no, she's like,
I know.
but,
It's
I
just.
think that's good acting.
No, I think it's the actress making a decision.
Yeah,
Yes.
because it makes her look less intelligent. She looks more like a simpleton, and that's supposed to be her character. So,
Yeah, which is realistic. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good acting job.
And so let me ask you, what is the nature of their relationship? Do they have one? Are they like boyfriend, girlfriend? Are they, is there, I mean, they didn't have sex, but is there an emotional connection? I know Sam feels it, but does she feel it? Or is she with him out of convenience and lack of choice? Like, he was just there for her,
Yeah.
and he's a nice enough guy. He's not raping and beating her, so she's just with him.
Yeah.
But then the second she meets someone hot and cool, bye-bye Sam, he's in the friend zone. Or is there something more here?
I mean, that could be. You have to bear in mind that with her, she's like basically known one man her entire life. The next men she meets rapes and kills most of the people she knows. So Sam is like such a distinct individual to her that could be appealing. And when you combine that with the fact that they had their escape from Craster's, he protected her all the way to Castle Black, killed a White Walker, like that sort of shared experience could be a big turn on.
She does admire him. She said, you're like a wizard. Remember that
Yeah.
scene from a couple?
Yeah,
was it
last season, I think.
Yeah.
And also, there was the talk they had when she was like plucking a chicken earlier this season, and she said something to the effect of, "Do you think about me, or do you think about
That's
me at
right.
night, or something?"
Yeah.
So it seems like she's certainly more receptive.
You're right, because it seemed in that episode that she was a little bit hurt that he was going to send her away, and she
Yeah.
was thinking he was sending her away because he didn't.
Didn't want her.
He didn't
Yeah.
find her fetching or something, right?
Exactly.
So
Fetching.
yeah, so you know what? I like their storyline. It's a little bit corny is too harsh of a word, but it's a little bit more of a conventional device that they're using. It's not exactly Game of Thrones-ish in the sense that it's a little bit more traditional.
It's fairly genuine too,
Yes,
which most relationships aren't.
But I do like that. That's a slow kind of, they're learning about one another and they're slowly falling kind of in love, I
Yeah,
guess.
and they're developing. Like he
Yeah.
definitely developed just over the course of this episode.
Yeah, and he develops quite a bit. I think she makes him better, right? And
He needed that.
yeah. And what was that famous movie where someone says, you make me want to be a better man? It was like a very romantic.
I don't know, but that's a good line though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what she's doing, and that's why he is, so he is choosing. In many ways, for the first time in his life, he has a choice between love and duty.
Yeah.
And he's in that storage room, and she's begging him to stay, and he chooses duty. He's like, I
Yeah.
have to be out there. I took an oath. These are my brothers. I need to be there. And I think one of the messages there is that by choosing duty over love, in some ways you enhance the love. Because I think
Yeah.
she was totally
She was turned on by it. Yeah, but
like,
because he was being a man, he
he's
was
like,
being
that's
forceful.
what men do,
Yeah.
right? That was awesome.
I think that's true. Now, what I said on the Sunday review, I still sort of believe that I don't think that the two things are as distinctive as they might seem to be in a quote. Like I think that you need to have some love for your duty to mean something to you, like to your brothers, to the realm. Like I think he went up there because he has a duty, but he also went up there because he sees that as protecting her. Like he almost lost her because of a decision he made, but now he's going to do whatever it takes to protect her. And in this case, it means going up on the wall and potentially dying.
That's right. I mean, so love and duty are not,
They're not totally
binary.
dissimilar.
It's like
yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah.
It's.
Now,
they're
like
bound
if you were to
together.
run off or something, then yeah, that would be abandoning your duty.
Yeah. So you're right. You love something, so you feel a sense of duty towards it,
Exactly.
and you want to perform your duty because you love something. So there's definitely an interplay
even if it's not a
there.
person necessarily.
So I want to contrast that with, is it Egret or Egret?
Egret.
Egret. Okay. So she has a duty towards her wildling oath or her wildling mission to kill everyone who's a crow, including Jon Snow.
Yeah.
And she had that opportunity to kill him because he was clearly one of their top fighters and the leaders.
De facto leader at that point, yeah.
And she didn't kill him.
Yeah.
She hesitated and she watched. And when he looked at her and realized, and he gave her that smile like, you know.
You got me if you want me.
You got me.
But I'm glad I get to see you before I die.
Right. Like, it was like a bittersweet moment where he's like, I'm so happy to see you again, and I still love you, but man, it sucks that you're gonna kill me now, and it has to end here. And she sees it, and there's a lot of communication without any words being spoken.
Yeah.
It was actually very beautiful and touching. But but because of that, she doesn't fulfill her duty because of love. She chooses love over duty, and then she gets killed by that boy. And then
Ali, I believe his name is.
yeah, and then he holds her.
Yeah.
And then we talk about being conventional. This was the most conventional moment in Game of Thrones history, in my opinion.
It looked like the most movie-esque sort of thing.
Where he holds her as she falls, you know, as she...
But what would you do in that situation? Like, you'd
Well, it's
rush
Game of
and you'd
Thrones.
hold her. Like, I mean...
Okay, I would, okay? But you know what I was expecting the whole time? When she's like, you know, nothing, Jon Snow. I thought she was going to jab an arrow in his eye or something.
Or I wanted her to pull him onto the arrow that was sticking out of her chest so they die together in each other's arms. That'd be romantic.
Just like, you don't know, but Steve McNair and his crazy mistress. Steve McNair is a famous football player. Yeah. He had a mistress, and she was mad that he wasn't going to leave his wife for her. So she shot him dead, and then she shot herself dead, but in a way so that her body would slump over and they'd be together in death
That's some
forever.
George R. R. Martin stuff right there.
So that's what you were expecting?
Basically, yeah. I think it would have been an interesting moment. Also, sort of a stylistic note, that was, they said it was the only, that they definitely remember, the only slow motion shot they definitely remember. There might have been a little bit. So they don't use slow motion in the show very often. But like as he's cradling her and you see people fighting in the background, it all slows down to almost nothing.
Yeah.
Which is sort of beautiful.
But you know, I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was a little bit disappointed in that scene because of how traditional / conventional it was. And you know, there's this massive battle going on, people dying every second, and the stake of the entire, you know, a Night's Watch is there.
Yeah.
And he is cuddling with.
He stops. Yeah.
He stops, and he's holding her, and they're having a conversation, reminiscing.
While people are dying around him. Yeah.
And conveniently, no arrow flies in their direction. Nothing happens. So it was a little bit.
Yeah.
To me, a bit
Traditional.
Traditional and boring. But.
Did you want to talk about the difference between how it happened and how it happened in the book?
Yes, I did, because I read somewhere that in the book.
Wait. Actually, we should probably say, obviously there are going to be spoilers for the episode we're talking about whenever we do one of these reviews.
Yeah.
But we're going to give you a special warning if we're going to spoil something that was different in the books. And I don't think it matters.
Spoiler.
Not really. It's extremely unlikely that this will matter going forward, but there's the possibility that it could. So extra double spoiler warning.
Sure. Okay, so in the book I heard that there's confusion as to whether it was Jon's arrow that kills her, and that
the fight's very different.
Yeah, and that leads to the two of them having some confusions, perhaps some anger or some unresolved moment, and she dies.
Yeah, I don't remember, I don't know that she knows it's possible he shot her. It might have been that way, but definitely like a bunch of people shot at her and he thinks he might have been the one. And he does still like cradle her and they have their last words and everything. But there is the possibility that he killed her, whereas in this version, it's totally put off on some other character.
Right.
Which I think it's Game of Thrones. You can have him possibly have killed her. Like I think, but it's just they didn't want to have him doing archery in the middle of their big battle scene, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, it would have been interesting to see how the fans would have reacted to the possibility that he killed his love. It's a very Game of Thrones sort of thing to have happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh well.
So what do you think? I mean, do you think there is any kind of message here about, you know, love versus duty? I mean, what's your take on that?
I mean, I definitely think that you can look back through the history of the show and the people who have chosen love to the detriment of their duty generally don't do very well. I think Robb Stark is the best example of that. I mean, you could, to some extent, I guess you could kind of say Ned Stark, like he chose, life and protecting his children. He made that bad deal and didn't survive anyway.
He also chose his love for his friend Robert Baratheon. He didn't want to hurt his feelings in his final moments about how his children are illegitimate and the queen has been having sex with her brother. So he chose, love. I mean, as the hand of the king, he had a duty to tell him everything and kind of set the record straight so that he can make proper plans. But
he chose not to do that. I think that I don't think that there's like one choice that always works. It's a complicated world that they inhabit, and the people are all different. I think that you have to be sort of rational and reasonable, and you can't be so driven by emotion that you run away from your duty totally because of love. Like that would have been if if Jon Snow had left a couple seasons ago to go help Robb or something like that. And imagine what would have happened at the Wall if Jon hadn't been there the whole time. You can't do that.
Right, and then every character, it seems, is given this choice to make between love and duty. So in a prior episode, Bran, he was so close to Jon. He just had to speak the word Jon, and he could be reunited with the brother that he absolutely loved. And given what happened to the rest of his family, I mean, how much would he have wanted to see him and to hug him? And the other one, Jojen, is that his name?
Jojen Reed,
yeah. He says no. If he sees you, he will not let you fulfill your duty. He will not let you fulfill your mission to fighting the Raven and all that. And Bran chooses to not. He chose.
And
duty
so far, it's working
love.
for him.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's really interesting how Martin keeps putting this choice out there over and over, and characters have that choice to make.
I mean, it's one of multiple sort of dichotomies that he likes to stress, like mercy versus strength, like justice versus mercy in some cases as well. I mean, he forces his characters to make these very tough decisions, and he is perfectly willing to punish them if they choose, in his view, wrong. I think that's one of the things that makes the show so exciting.
So, anything else?
Well, let's see. You talked about the giants and all that. I really liked the scythe that went along the side. That was very cool.
That was awesome. By the way, that if I saw, if I'm part of the army that's trying to invade this,
I'm done.
I'm like, I'm not climbing anything because if you don't fall and die on your own, they're bring that
just cut you to pieces.
That was so amazing.
But it seems a little bit impractical. I don't know how they took something that heavy and brought it to the side, but granted, they built a mile-high ice wall, so I guess they can do pretty amazing things. Trying to think of other stuff that we haven't focused on enough. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much time they can possibly devote to resolving what's happening at the Wall, considering that they did just give a full episode to it. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to not devote 20 minutes to...
All right, so I want to speak about that for a second. So I know all the book readers love the Wall story, but for people like me who haven't read the book, the Wall is by far the least compelling part of the whole story.
I know, I don't absolutely love it.
And it's because I think the show creators have not given us a reason to love this story. Because the only character that we really care about is Jon Snow. And Jon Snow so far is he's a bit of a dullard. I mean, he's not nearly as interesting as Tyrion or even Robb Stark, who is all fiery, or Oberyn, not even close. And the wildlings are kind of given this, they're the wildlings, they're kind of lumped together, and other than Ygritte. By the way, why do they only have one female?
I mean, obviously the Wildling army has many, many females. I think that she was just one of the few who they trusted on that particular mission. And honestly, she might not have even been there if not for Jon Snow. Like she was supposed to watch over him, or she said, I'm not leaving him or something like that.
But the Wall story is not compelling for a couple of reasons. Like I said, there's no character that you're that deeply invested in. Secondly, the story is that we all know the White Walkers are you can't beat them unless you have that dragon glass. So we know the wall is going to be breached. It has to be breached at some point. So we're just all kind of waiting for that to happen, and then.
And so you feel like until it happens, whatever happens, you feel isn't as significant.
Correct.
Okay. I think there has been a little bit of sort of political intrigue that they haven't they haven't covered, and maybe they're just not going to. I mean, there are a lot of things in the show. The show is more different this season than it has been in previous seasons. There were a lot of things that were changed just in this last episode that were very different in the books. But they've left out some stuff that I think, in terms of the intrigue, might have drawn you in more.
Right.
And maybe they'll add that.
Yeah. So if they had given us some backstory on how Mance united the wildlings, and we got to know and understand the different tribes of wildlings, and
they really only showed a few in the show.
Yeah, I mean
the Thens.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
And they show it in a very cursory way, and where they're just being incredibly awful, and you can't identify with them, you can't sympathize with them, and you don't really care about them that much.
Yeah.
So I wish they had, because they're supposed to be free folk,
Yeah.
right? So the Thens, okay, I get that they kill and eat their enemies, but when they're not killing and eating their enemies, are they like
what are they doing?
perfectly nice, happy people who are having little Then
cards.
children and hanging out playing cards?
Yeah, they don't seem very real.
Yeah, they just seem like monsters and ghouls, so it's hard to identify with their cause. So I wish the show had spent some time in prior seasons or even this season developing that story of what happened north of the wall to get us more invested.
Yeah. That's the sort of thing I think that they could, like, if they had some special features or something, I think would be great. I don't know. There's a lot that I wish they could add. You gain a lot by going from book to TV, but you also lose something in terms of how much time you have. I mean, what we saw in that episode, I don't remember, but off the top of my head, was multiple chapters. And again, it would be more like what you're used to in the show, where they're switching back and forth. Like, it wasn't just 100 pages of that.
Right.
And so they made a stylistic decision to consolidate it into one episode, and they haven't given as much time to developing it as perhaps they should have.
Right.
Yeah. I still enjoyed it for what it was. I think some of the things I like about the show, they continue to do. I like that, other than the Thens perhaps, bad guys are still believable for the most part. And like Alistair Thorne, he's a prick. He doesn't like Jon Snow irrationally. He didn't listen to reason. But he's still a man of the Night's Watch, and when it came down to it, he gave a rousing speech, he fought, he was willing to get injured, like, he did what he should have done. Like, in any other fantasy show, it would have just been Jaina Slint. He would have hated Jon Snow and then been a little sniveling coward who runs away when the fight comes. But Alistair Thorne's a real man. You may hate him, but he fights.
Yeah, I mean, so Alistair Thorne, like, his character and what he did, that didn't surprise me at all, and I kind of expected that from him all along, because whenever Jon had any interaction with the leadership, Thorne, to me, he seemed like Jack Nicholson's character in A Few Good Men, where he's just a tough guy. He thinks being tough
That's an interesting comparison.
And mean to the recruits is the best way to make them tough.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a very good future ahead of them. I mean, at best, they die old, horny, and single, right?
That's the best any of us can hope for, I think.
Worst case is they get murdered or killed by...
And turn into white.
Yeah, so he wants to toughen them up. I get it. The other guy, Jaina Slint, I mean, he doesn't want to be there. He was just sent there as punishment, so he hates everything about it. He's a coward to the core. So, I mean, again, I'm not surprised by that at all.
Yeah. Really fast on that, just because I got a little bit wrong on the Sunday review of, Jenk asked me why it was that Tyrion sent him away, and I couldn't remember the specifics, but Jaina Slint was the guy who did some of the killing of Robert's bastards when they were going around tracking him down, and also he was the person responsible for betraying Ned Stark, who thought he had the City Watch on his side. And so if you're Tyrion, you're not going to trust that guy when he obviously showed that you could pay him off and he'd let somebody die.
So I got him confused with the other guy who testified against Tyrion at trial.
Varys?
Not Varys.
Oh.
but the commander of some sort. And
that was Meryn Trant, probably.
Yeah.
One of the Kingsguard.
Yeah, Kingsguard.
Yeah.
I thought it was the same character, so I was a little bit confused.
Interesting. They have similar faces, I guess. One's a bit more toad-like.
Right. Okay. But yep, that's it. That's all I got for this episode.
Yeah, just some extra thoughts we had. You have another chance now to go down into the comments and have a little discussion. As always, tread carefully if you want to avoid spoilers, because the night is dark and full of terrors, and so is our comment section. But anyway, we're really excited. We've got one more episode, and then we got a long wait ahead of us. So we got one more review, and then one more upon further review. See you next week, guys.
Thanks.